Mike Morrice has arrived. Hi, Mike. Welcome back to our show, everyone. Mike Morrice, the MP.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Brent. Can you hear me okay? Sorry for being a few minutes late this evening.
Yeah, and we really greatly appreciate you taking the time as always, and kind of giving us an insight of what's going on at the House of Commons with the development of the GLBI.
Sure. Do you want me to start with a bit of an update? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
So I think I'd already presented the petition after when we had last spoken. So we're still waiting on a formal response to the petition. But I think even more importantly is we're also working to secure support from other MPs across all parties. And I wanted to clarify, I saw something on Twitter from a few folks who had this misunderstanding that we already had cross-party support. So I want to be mindful to kind of clarify that's something we're still trying to build that. And what we're looking to do is engage with any other parliamentarian who agrees that moving forward, fast-tracking the Canada Disability Benefit, doing it by ensuring that Canadians with disabilities are involved every step of the way and are at the table. That's something that we're continuing to meet with other MPs about, and certainly aren't at a place already where every party is already supporting yet. That's kind of the work that we're in the midst of doing, along with encouraging the governing party to go ahead and reintroduce the legislation, which they also haven't done yet. So today the House rose this afternoon, and it won't be sitting for the next 2 weeks. So when Parliament resumes, I think it's March 21st or so, that's going to be our next opportunity for the governing party to put forward their next piece of legislation. And that's what we're really advocating most of all right now, is that the next bill that gets introduced should be the new version of C-35 from the last session. Or that's at least what we are encouraging them to do. But whether they follow through still remains to be seen. And is that advocacy? I know a lot of folks who might be listening in right now. I know a lot. There was a great push on Twitter a little while back of Canadians across the country who've been emailing their MPs and booking calls with their MPs, letting them know how much they support the Canada Disability Benefit.
Do you want me to go to some questions at all to start with?
Please, great. Yeah, it's as you'd like.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Amir. I think it's Amir, if I pronounce her name right. Amir?
Hi, everyone. My name is Asia. Thanks, Brent, for your time.
Asia. I know it's close. Hey, I should have wrote down.
Just a heads up, so my voice might come and go in between, as I'm still on a lung machine, on and off. But I wanted to start by thanking Brent for hosting and thanking the Honourable MP Mike for taking the lead on bringing the petition forward to the House, because it is so hard to find an MP who is going to champion the most vulnerable among us. I can speak from experience of trying to find an MP and an MPP to help me in bringing petitions for perceived disabilities and who are at the highest risk during this pandemic. And that's one of my medical machines in the background. And so you might recognize me from in media interviews of being the face of what happens if governance fails, and making sure we have that intersection of disability, poverty, of pharmacare, of healthcare, of dismantling racism and misogyny and all the different layers of oppression that intersect with disability, in which this isn't just related to Ontario where I live, but across Canada, or life-saving medication that is needed not just for my medical conditions, but now for COVID-19 as well. And so many medical conditions was pulled from the formulary and was permitted to be price gouged at over 472%. And so can you imagine if you're also in disability poverty, how in the world will I, or anyone like me, and there are many of us, ever be able to afford over $200,000 a month and more, depending on our dosage? You know, from $5,000 to $200,000. This is outrageous, and that's just for one thing. So the quick tax that we have to now hold on to, I don't even know how to explain this other than, you know, I'm also not just a person with disabilities who's racialized and a hijabi and, you know, having so many different disabilities. I'm also a woman with expertise. I'm in disaster management. I do, you know, environmental justice and things, and thank you, Mike, for, you know, mentioning about, you know, climate justice is important. There is no climate justice without disability justice. And so when we're thinking about things like a disability benefit that's going to be, you know, trying to not just fill in gaps, but look at things in a holistic sense, there's no way we can wait for 3 years. Absolutely no way. We are already dying. Last week, Sophia was murdered by being coerced into medical coercion and dying, Maid, which it was mortifying. I was among so many Canadians watching the Senate and the House debate whether our lives were worthy. And so when we see federally that, you know, the moment able people need accessibility or assistance like CERD, it is passed swiftly without 3 years of research required. And we know that federally the capacity is there. Fiscally, the capacity is there for well over $2,200 a month. And for us to meanwhile attempt to negotiate with our provincial governments, I don't think that will ever be a realistic option for us, because we've been trying to do this for generations, and for generations have been pushed into MAID or become unhoused and then face police brutality, because being poor is criminalized, being racialized is criminalized, being, you know, disabled is criminalized. And so for me, I'm coming on this from lived experience and also professional experience. It's already horrific, but can you imagine generations from now, children's opening up their textbooks and looking at how we weren't just left behind, we were condemned to die, and not just condemned to die, we were told from the beginning, you are on your own. You're going to have to try to evacuate on your own if there's some kind of flood going on in BC, or if there's a heat dome, or if there's an ice storm in Ontario, or if there's a huge pandemic in which we are the ones who are with the target on our backs, who are going to be killed and murdered first through eugenics, ableism in healthcare. A large part of my disabilities is because I survived what Joyce Echequan did not in a hospital. I'm a survivor of violence from eugenics, ableism. And for the life of me, despite also being in policy, despite also being on a federal committee regarding disabilities and accessibility, none of that can save me as an individual, or people closest to me, or people in this conversation that we're trying to dismantle the barriers. What I'm asking for is we need to put this through swiftly and not for 3 years, and it needs to be comprehensive and looking at all the different layers of oppression our diverse communities in the disability community experience. right? So if we cannot, trying to overhaul a provincial system which is inherently ableist and sexist and racist, what marriage equality do we have in Canada? We haven't reached there yet until people with disabilities can also get married, right? So it's all of these kinds of things. So, if there's going to be a benefit, which there must be, and swiftly, because if CERC can go through that quickly, then there's no excuse for this continued genocide on our people, like structural violence genocide on us.
Yeah.
And so basically what I'm saying is looking at it from that holistic thing. Well, if it's national, then it allows people to be able to move from community to community if they have to go somewhere to relocate where their medical treatment or their disability supports are easier for them. Or it allows them, so it's portable. It also doesn't claw back, right? It also doesn't prohibit you from having a relationship. We are worthy of joy. We are resilient, joyful people. We deserve love. We deserve living with dignity. We deserve being able to have somewhere to live without being, evicted. And we deserve having governance that, that supports what you're doing, Mike, to support us. So for every other politician who is listening to this recording, we have the capacity to click the vote. Our vote matters. Our lives are worthy. My disabled life is worthy. And so is yours.
Thank you so much, Amir. Nicely said.
Asya.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike. Wow. I'm actually speechless on that. Mike, what would you like to, when I say speechless, I mean, you really summed up a lot of information there.
I just wanted to say thanks for your advocacy. And what you reminded me in your, you so powerfully spoke about the intersections of your identity and for so many of the ways that folks are pushed, are marginalized by our communities. On an optimistic side, one of the things you made me think of is the reality that the budgets are simply reflections of our priorities. And so what I mean by that is in any given year, any government is simply saying, here's what we care about most based on what we're going to spend the most money on. And it made me think of, the $18 billion that we collectively gave in subsidies to the biggest oil and gas companies in the last year alone. Well, some of the estimates I've seen for the Canada Disability Benefit it's not an insignificant investment, right? It's a $10 billion investment. Well, if we were really to be honest about what is it we prioritize the most, it would be a no-brainer. It would be let's just get on with it, right? And so I think, Azia, when you're speaking, recognizing that this isn't some kind of a siloed campaign, but rather this is about justice for all. And if we're going to think about justice in this country, if we're going to think about our moral imperative to act, think about what it means. What does climate justice mean? Well, it means it's all interconnected. And if it's all interconnected, then it's a shared struggle. And if it's a shared struggle, then we're in it together. So let's go on and get it done. And so that's the kind of inspiration you brought up in me, Asya, as you were speaking. And I'm so glad this is being recorded so that that's captured for others to hear. And I feel like you've just got me all fired up. So thanks for sharing that.